Welcome everyone. Today let's begin a new lesson in science, that is environmental management. So this lesson is for class 10th and from science 2. So this is part 1 video of this lesson. Let's begin with the Okay, so before starting a lesson, let's answer few questions. So first question is, what is ecosystem and which are its different components? So student, ecosystem is a group or community composed of living and non-living things and their interaction with each other. So this is a group or community which include both the thing, that is living things as all living thing as well as non-living thing. Okay, so living things like birds, animals, plants, etc. Okay, and non-living things like air, water and sun. So these all are the non-living things. Okay, so interaction between the living things as well as non-living thing makes a community or group, and this is called as an ecosystem. So student, we know there are different types of ecosystem like terrestrial ecosystem, desert ecosystem, aquatic, ocean. So there are different types of ecosystem. Okay, and in different ecosystem, different components including living and non-living components are different according to the ecosystem. Okay, so they can be natural as well as artificial, means man-made, and every ecosystem has two basic components. So first is biotic component and abiotic components. Now biotic means living things and abiotic means non-living components. So this is an ecosystem and different components of ecosystem. Okay, now next question, which are the types of consumers and what are the criteria for their classifications? Okay, so there are different types of consumer. So first, plants are producers. Okay, so these are the plants are autotrophs. Why? Because they prepare their own food by using water, minerals and sun energy by the process of photosynthesis. That is why plants are called as a producers or autotrophs. Okay, so the organism like primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary and tertiary consumer. So these are the different types of a consumer which are dependent on one another. So these are the different types of consumers like herbivore, omnivore and carnivore. Okay, and the criteria for the classification of consumers are mode of nutrition, food requirement, etc. So depending upon the different types of a consumers like mode, their types of a nutrition they are having, and their food requirement, their habitat. So these are the criteria for different classification of consumers. Okay, that is primary, secondary and tertiary. Alright, now next question, what may be the relationship between lake and birds on a tree? Okay, so this is a beautiful picture in which it is shown that relationship between lake and birds on the tree. Okay, so the birds on the tree depends on aquatic organism in the lake for their feeding. That means in aquatic organism like fishes and different plants, different types of organism which are there present in the lake. Okay, so the birds on the tree, these are depend on the aquatic organism in the lake for their survival or for their feeding, and birds stay on the trees which are in the vicinity of the lake, so that is the easier for them to capture fishes, frogs, etc. So this is how the lake birds are depend on the lake aquatic organism which are there in the lake. So this is a relationship between lake and birds on a tree. Okay, and they must also be using the same lake water for drinking also. That means for feeding and drinking purpose, birds on a tree uses a lake. Okay, next question, what is the difference between food chain and food web? So first of all, what is food chain? So student, a food chain is a linear sequence of organisms through which nutrients and energy passes as one organism eats another. That means basically this is a flow of a transformation of energy from one organism to another organism in a linear sequence. So this is a food chain. Okay, and next, food web. What is the food web? So here a food web is made up of interconnected food chains that shows the relationship between organism in an ecosystem. That means in food web different kinds of food chains are interconnected to each other. That means they show the relationship between each other. So this is a food web, and these are the basic difference between food chain and food web. Okay. So student, here one food chain is given, and you have to identify the different components of a food chain. Okay, so what is the necessary for convert this picture into food web and why? So first of all, let's understand the different components of a food chain. So here these are the producers, which are the plants. So plants are always producers. Why? Because they produce their own food and they are using their own food for the survival. Okay, and rest of the food is stored in the some parts like leaves, fruits, flowers. Okay, plants are producer and the primary consumer, which are dependent on the plants. Okay, so these are the primary consumer. Like here example of a grasshopper is given. So grasshopper is dependent on the producer, so that is why it is a primary consumer. Okay, now frog, here this is a secondary consumer. So secondary consumer is dependent on the primary consumer, that is frog is dependent on the grasshopper for their feeding purpose. And next is the tertiary consumer, that is this is a third level of a consumer, which is example given as a snake. Okay, so a snake depend on the frog. And final consumer, or we can say apex consumer, this is a hawk, which will depend on the snake. And next, after the death of all these organism, what happened? They decomposes into the earth. Okay, and the fungi decomposers here, like fungi like mushroom and all the different types of fungi, they will eat up or decomposes the different types of a consumer after their death. Okay, so this is the example of a food chain in which we can observe how the one organism is dependent on the another for their food purpose. Okay, now let us answer the question that what is necessary to convert this food chain into a food web and why. Okay, so first of all, in this food chain has to be, if the food chain has to be converted into food web, then there should be interaction between the different components. Okay, like here the different components should be interact with each other just to convert the simple food chain into a food web. And any living organism can be prey to different predators. Okay, that means these are dependent on one another, like predators are dependent on the prey. And moreover, a predator can also be prey for other. That means the predator, which like here in second point we have seen that any living organism can be prey to different types of predators. Okay, so moreover, a predator can also be prey for the other organism or other type of a consumer. Okay, and frog eats different insects, and the same frog can be either eaten by a snake or by hawk. So this is how the prey and predator relationship has been shown, just to convert the food chain into a food web. Alright, now let us understand the ecosystem review. Okay, so first of all, what is an ecosystem? So ecosystem is formed by biotic, that is living things, and abiotic factor, that is non-living components, and their interaction with each other. And student, each factor plays a very important role in the ecosystem. Like producers are always a plant. Why? Because they are preparing their food by the process of photosynthesis. Okay, so producers like plants are autotrophs, and these play a very important role because these are the basic component of the ecosystem. Okay, initial component of the ecosystem, we can say. And herbivore like deer, goats, sheep, cattle, horses, camels, etc., feeding upon the producers are also important. That means herbivore, these are the plant eaters. Okay, so the plant eaters, that is herbivore, are depending on the producer. So these also vary. So each and every component in the ecosystem plays an equal and important role. And predator like a lion, now predator means these are depend on the herbivore. Okay, or another organism. So on organism, so the predators like lion and tiger, which prevent the overpopulation of herbivore. And okay, question may arise in our mind that whether the caterpillars found in nature, organisms present in filthy dirt or dirty places like termites. Now termites, these are the white ants which are present in the filthy places. Okay, insects present in a dung are really useful in the ecosystem. So yes, obviously student, each and every organism or every a part of the ecosystem, plays an important role for maintaining the ecosystem. Okay, so those organisms are, that means the caterpillar and the insects or termites which are there in the dirty or filthy places. So those organisms are also important, though they are dirty, they are present on the dirty places, and they are responsible for the cleaning the environment. That means these are responsible for decomposing or maintaining the pollution in the environment, and it means that our existing is due to these factors present around us only. Thank you.